Take your time. Not too much, though. As my wife likes to remind me, time is a precious commodity around here.
Welcome to Decoding TV's coverage of The Boroughs. The Boroughs is streaming right now on Netflix, and it's the latest series from Jeffrey Addis and Will Matthews, whose work you may know from The Dark Crystal, Age of Resistance. Patrick Klepek, do you watch Dark Crystal at all by any chance?
I love the original movie, watched some of the show, fell off it, but it was on a list of, I just finished Stranger Things, like a rewatch with my kids, and we loved the experience of watching something as a family so much. I came up with a bunch of options for follow-up shows. Like, hey, we're going to, as a family, maybe we'll try a bunch of first episodes of things. And on a list of, like, I'd seen online of some people recommending in the age group of my kids was Dark Crystal. So we did watch it. They were very taken by the puppets, but did not seem ready to jump into the show quite yet. But I liked what I saw. Less so the storytelling, more the sheer artistry on display was peak Netflix.
I heard the craft was excellent on Dark Crystal, Age of Resistance. But anyway, The Boroughs is also executive produced by the Duffer Brothers, which makes a lot of sense because this show borrows a lot of its feel from Stranger Things, which itself was already derivative of many of the Amblin and Stephen King movies we watched in the 80s. The Boroughs is about a fictional elderly community called The Boroughs, think The Villages, except in the desert, where many people go to retire and possibly find themselves. As the show begins, we meet Sam Cooper, played by Alfred Molina, a recently widowed retired aeronautical engineer who's moving into the Boroughs. It was really his wife's idea to move in, and since she's now gone, Sam is not even sure if he wants to continue going through with this move. But strange things are happening to the residents in the Boroughs, and as a mystery begins to unravel, Sam decides he's going to stay and figure out exactly what's going on. There are 8 episodes of the TV show The Boroughs. All of them are available right now. Patrick has seen the first 2 episodes. I've seen all 8. We'll be spoiling the first 2 episodes, but we won't be spoiling anything from later episodes. And later on in this podcast episode, I will tell you what I thought of the season as a whole and the general arc of the show. People may consider that spoilery. I'll try to give a warning in advance. But Patrick, we were going to talk about this and watch the first couple episodes, but the moment I saw that it was a mystery box style show, I was like, okay, I don't want to just show up here and speculate on whether it's going to end up paying off. And so I watched all 8 episodes before today's podcast so I could kind of give a little preview of like the whole season. All that said, Patrick Klepek, you've seen the first 2 episodes. What did you think of The Boroughs?
I don't like the tone of how you set that future reveal up, David Chen. I have to be honest. I feel like you imbued that with that upcoming reveal with a tone.
No, I mean, I think it was just more like, I want to be able to communicate to people whether it's worth the journey or not. You know what I mean?
It feels throwbacky, and it feels the kind of show that was greenlit in a lot of ways in the wake of Lost, of like a show that has some sort of mysterious payoff at the end. Often didn't. But the Boroughs, I'm really, really enjoying the first 2 episodes. Like, I sat down with my wife who watched this sight unseen, but I said it was, hey, like the Stranger Things folks were involved in some sort of creative capacity, and it's got a real Spielberg sort of like charm to it from the trailer. Seems like the kind of thing you and I would eat up, and like absolutely have eaten up the first 2 episodes. I think it makes a critical error almost at the jump, which is to show too much of a creature that is probably very important to the rest of the show. Up front, I think it tips a little too much of its hand too early aesthetically about one of its core mysteries, even if you don't really understand the how and the why. But absent that, just a wonderful cast from like top to bottom, like just a who's who of folks that you have seen in so many things over the years. And to anchor it with Alfred Molina is just such an inspired choice, because he is one of those actors that makes a show like this work. Like, is going to give dramatic weight to the most expositional of scenes, like imbues everything with a sense of gravitas. Like, it's just a great cast, and he's somebody that every time he's at the center of something, it just occurs to you, why isn't he at the center of more things? Like, I know he's around, but it just feels like I don't see him as in a way that with a frequency that matches his talent. So The Boroughs has been a delight. I can already sort of see potential gaps in like where that is going to be satisfying in terms of the payout. But the thing about a mystery box show is there's a fine line. Are you here for the mystery box? Are you here for the characters that are going to go and solve a mystery along the way? Oftentimes that can go extraordinary lengths to chilling any sort of negativity you might have over the mystery box. One might be disappointed, but you still enjoyed the journey. too often mystery box shows don't, the whole journey is finding out what's inside the box. I think what the Boroughs gets right, insofar as what I have seen, is that I prefer the mystery, paid off well, and was interesting and intriguing. But if it doesn't, I don't start every episode wondering, gosh, I wonder what's going on in the Boroughs. I kind of want to just see what this cast of characters gets up to, and that's a pretty good sign for a show.
I largely agree with pretty much everything you've said. I think The Boroughs is a fantastic show. I've had a great time watching the show. I saw someone describe The Boroughs as a cross between Stranger Things and The Man on the Inside, the Ted Danson show.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a very astute, because essentially it has the feel of Stranger Things, which again is very reminiscent of Spielberg, Stephen King movies, like the supernatural horror elements kind of thing.
This dials up the Spielberg, though. Like,
absolutely,
Stranger Things is like Spielberg aesthetic, Stephen King sort of substance. Like this, even including like the title treatment, has like the old school Amblin sort of Williams Spielberg collaborative musical motifs.
And I would say that's a huge part of why this feels so much like something from our childhood is the music. It's very reminiscent of John Williams scores for E.T., even Indiana Jones, like those kinds of movies. And then The Man on the Inside is the first season was about Ted Danson infiltrating a elderly community and trying to solve a mystery. And so you combine all these together, and it makes for a really nice, fun mix that also maybe has a couple things to say about what it feels like, what it means to get old and contemplate the nature of your existence. So I've been having a great time with the show, and I will tell you this, Patrick Klepek, having gotten to the end of the show, I don't regret the time I spent with it, and that is a lot more. That is a lot more than I could say for many shows we cover here on Decoding TV. So, okay, so I think a huge part of the success of the show hinges on the cast. You're watching these characters hang out and solve problems for a lot of the show, and so it really needs to work in order for you to enjoy watching The Boroughs. So the cast of The Boroughs includes Judy and Art, played by Alfre Woodard and Clark Peters. This is a couple that's been together for decades, but is now starting to question elements of their relationship. There's Wally Baker, played by Dennis O'Hare, a retired doctor who's dying of cancer and looking for a medical miracle. Jack Willard, Sam's neighbor in The Boroughs, who's played by Bill Pullman. And Renee, a retired music manager, played by Gina Davis. I just want to say, shout out to Dennis O'Hare, who I think is probably I would say, like, arguably the lowest profile person of this cast, who has always been one of my favorite character actors. He did a wonderful job in movies like, say, Michael Clayton. And it's nice to see him like really finally get kind of top billing. Like, he's really one of the main characters. He's kind of Alfred Molina's one of his closest buddies in the show. All that said, Patrick Klepek, what did you think of the chemistry between these characters?
I mean, that's what, really sold me on the show at the top, which is why I think some of the decisions it makes in terms of unraveling the bits of its mystery box at the start are kind of ham-fisted, and almost feel like the show isn't starting with its most confident foot. But the moment we get into the Boroughs and spend time with these characters, it spends a lot of time in these opening episodes making you understand the complicated dynamics that exist. You have this familiar aesthetic of suburbia, but then why are people friends? Like, what is romance in like a stage of your life like this? Like, does it mean to be with people your entire adult life and then settle down here when people's emotions and attractions might be changed? Like, there's one of the great like joys is actually the mysteries between the people who have already been here before. Like, as Alfred Molina joins their group and starts learning about like, oh, I thought this is how these two present out in public, but like in private, it's a little bit different, a little more nuanced. And they spend an enormous amount of time, and all of these great actors by choosing a lot of character actors, they get you up to speed on buying a lot of the emotional beats and relationships really quickly. Like, their own interactions with one another sell you on, these are people that know each other very intimately, very well. And they all carry secrets, but they're not necessarily mystery box secrets. Like, there's a whole scale to what it means to be a secret at the Boroughs. Some are more banal than others. And I think a show like this, which especially early on, you're not getting many answers. It's mostly just mysteries and, that's odd. it lives or dies on you buying the existing character relationships and wanting to hang out with them. It was key to why Stranger Things worked, was like the core kids. Like, I just want to see what they get up to. And then eventually that show expanded into being, I care about the lore and the world and how all this stuff works. Early on, you can't buy into any of that. You just have to buy into these characters. And I think the cast does an exceptional job of being just fun to be around. They kind of amp up a little. Sometimes it feels like, ooh, they like to have sex and drink and like do drugs. And Gina
Have you
Davis
ever seen
is
old people do drugs? Whoa.
Gina Davis is swearing a lot, and there's a little. It feels. Try hard is like
a little bit like they think they're being subversive when it's like, okay, like we get it. Old people also like to have fun, right?
And it feels like the show trying a little too hard in moments, but I never got hung up on that. It does feel like, like that comes and goes, but at the end of the day, I'm left with a really interesting suite of characters where I'm happy to learn all the different dynamics between all of them as you go on little adventures.
One of my favorite things about the Boroughs is that the main character, played by Alfred Molina, is an aeronautical engineer. And it's a plot point that he liked to fix up old cathode ray tube televisions with his daughter. And that skill comes in handy for plot reasons during the course of the show. And honestly, watching the Boroughs reminded me kind of why I fell in love with movies and sci-fi in the past, where basically you're watching these people try to solve a mystery, try to overcome a problem, and using their intelligence to do so. And I just realized that that's like somewhat rare. They're using their actual skills, their engineering know-how, their ability to create intricate machines, right? It's like, oh wow, this reminds me of Back to the Future and things like that, where like you could use actual hard skills to try to solve some really interesting problems. And that's one of the reasons why it really reminded me of the movies I watched growing up, and why I kind of fell in love with movies in the first place a little bit. So, Patrick, did that speak to you at all, or is that just me?
No, and I think especially stuff like this is refreshing in an era of, as we come on sort of the tail end or a different version of the superhero era, that's like extraordinary things happening to extraordinary people. And I think part of the magic of a lot of the Spielberg stuff is extraordinary things happening to ordinary people. And that's a lot of what the Boroughs captures. Like, sure, there are extraordinary things happening like in the Boroughs, but these are all just a bunch of average folks, like kind of figuring it out. Like even Stranger Things like worked because it started there, like the introduction of 11, or like it's extraordinary things happening to our core cast of characters. And then that, of course, escalates and many, many people become superheroes over the course of that show. But I think the Boroughs starts there, and it's novel to watch a scene unravel as the characters do something that you think you might do in that situation if you were that character, right? Like you and I are not engineers, but if we were, we could imagine like if I was an engineer,
right,
how would I try and solve like this
I would
little
make an
mystery
extremely specific machine that solves this problem, right? Yeah.
Yes.
And we would like it's aspirational. It's like, oh man, I would love to be so smart that I could do that in this movie or this TV show. So yeah. All right, Patrick, should I talk about the overall arc of the season? Is that cool with you? Right?
Yeah, no, I'm deeply curious how it landed for you.
I will not spoil anything, but I will talk about what I thought of the show as a whole, and I will reveal whether the mystery is resolved. I will not reveal what the mystery is, right? So like that kind of stuff. If you do consider this a spoiler, skip ahead a few minutes. I'll put a timestamp for when the TV news segment of this episode is going to begin. But Patrick, like you, I also felt like, wow, they really showed the creature right away. Like they're not even beating around the bush a little bit. And that was a little interesting, I guess, because the last show these guys did was Dark Crystal: Age of Resistance. They want people to appreciate the creature design. And so it's like, look at the creature. It's right there where you're seeing it in full blown, whatever it is, right away. So I am going to explain to you that the mystery is solved. They do explain what the mystery is. And I will say that what I'm about to say can be a feature or a bug depending on how you feel about it. Right.
All right.
But the the manner in which the mystery's solution is revealed and the solution itself is extremely straightforward. Like, it is one of the most straightforward reveals I've ever seen. And in fact, if I asked you to just make something up, like to just guess what is going on, and you guess it, like, you know, it's very plausible you could come up with literally the entirety of what is happening here, right? So some people might find that to be disappointing, but refreshingly, it does mean that it's possible for this story to be completely self-contained. Like, you get to the end of the season and you're like, hey, that was a fun story, and we never need to visit the world of the Boroughs ever again, right? That is a very plausible outcome from this whole situation. So, but I will say I was a little surprised, you know, like I was a little surprised by like how straightforward it is and how like the way in which it's laid. You know how, particularly in Lost, right? But other shows as well, where there are certain reveals that, you know, you and I will probably remember forever, right? Of like, oh, I can't remember what, I still remember the day when it was revealed that so-and-so did such and such. Or,
I can just say, just make your own kind of music, sing your own,
right?
Like that
exactly.
Anyone who's watched Lost knows exactly what I am talking about.
I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about. Like, that was an amazing moment in TV history, right? And I think ideally you want your reveals to be like that, where there is a big reveal and you're like, whoa, not only do I have more information about what's going on, but the manner in which it was revealed was mind-blowing to me. In my opinion, that does not happen in the show, right? It just, the information is dropped in a fairly pedestrian way, and the actual information itself is fairly pedestrian. It's not like
feature, not a bug.
yeah, there you go. So
I mean, because we've talked about this before, where, you know, if you extract the Boroughs from the cultural context, the economic context that it's built in,
right,
I can imagine looking at that as a bug.
Mm-hmm.
Within the context in which the Boroughs is being made, I think that is a feature. We've talked about how it is profoundly, you know, irresponsible is like a heavy word, but like, you're wasting people's time if you're building a show that cannot resolve some core tension of itself by the end, both knowing there is no certainty of follow-up seasons, and the lengths between those seasons can be extraordinary in length. And so the idea of like this show playing it perhaps a little too safe in terms of like what it's tidying up,
right,
sounds fantastic, easier to pitch it to other people.
Yes. Like, by the end, you're going to get an answer for whatever questions you have, pretty much. I agree that makes it much more appealing to people in general, and also you don't need to worry about some big cliffhanger where there might never be a season 2. So that's one point I just wanted to make about how everything resolves. And then the other thing I wanted to say is just, I really think the ending, or towards the end of the show, the final couple episodes really pulls at some of the heartstrings, man. Like, and even though
the setups here are so easy, I'm like,
yeah,
I cry so easily.
It's not that hard to get you to shed some tears in this one, yeah. You know, so yeah, it really got to me. Yes, there's some really, I'll just say, fairly silly and bizarre plot developments that happen towards the end of the show.
All right.
But at the end of the day, I was like, oh man, the emotional core of this show really works. And ultimately, that is what is important. So I had a good time with the show, and I would generally recommend it to anyone. Like, I think it's a good time and has some interesting things to say. And well shot, well acted, great cast, great score. This is a win in the streaming era. So the Boroughs, check it out. Hey everyone, David Chen here. Thank you so much for watching that video from Decoding TV. If you want to get an audio version of the show, all you got to do is go to podcast.decodingtv.com. And if you want to support what we do, get ad-free episodes of the podcast and also bonus episodes of the podcast, go to decodingtv.com and become a paid member. Of course, you can also like and subscribe for more. We appreciate it. Thanks. See you later.